All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to say, call Halayim, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah Quitash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth and who rule well in this truth. Shalom to the 144,000 and the elect of the nation of Israel that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Peace and mercy unto you. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You are for sure and are for certain the true Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of. You are the true chosen people of the book of the Bible. All right, so let's get into it, man. Let's get into some news. All right, to let you know what's popping off in the world, to let you know what's going on. All right, we're watching. All right, so you're not living under a rock. All right, you know what's going on around you, you know what's popping off. All right, because many people, all right, majority of the people of this earth, all right, are just straight zombies and have no idea what is getting ready to pop off and happen. All right, just like these wacky tacky Christians, man. All right, they have no idea, all right, what is getting ready to pop off and what's happening. They don't even know what's going on right now. All right, these wacky tacky Christians, man. All right. And all these other people, all right, all these other zombies, all right, that are floating around and walking upon this earth. All right, only the true prophets of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, all right, know what's going on. And that's why they're out here. The Lord rose them up, all right, to wake up the rest of the elect. All right, only the elect know what's going on, the true prophets and the true servants of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And that's why they've been out here prophesying. You think the regular wacky tacky Christian, your average wacky tacky Christian, knows that America's going to be destroyed, all right, and wiped off the face of this earth by nuclear missiles, by nuclear destruction? And this is something that is seconds away, man. All right, seconds away from happening. All right, meaning, you know, this is getting ready to pop off in the very, 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 very near future, man. All right, we don't have to wait 10, 15 years anymore. All right, if you still think we got another 60, 70 years here, another 100 years here, if you think you're going to grow old, right, and be able to see your grandkids, right, then you're very, very far away from the truth, and you have absolutely zero idea of what is popping off and what's going on. You don't even have an inkling of a clue. Not even a small iota. All right? But let's get into this current news, like I said, man. All right? Because now you got the U.S., all right, informing Poland, all right, that Russia is getting ready to plan an attack, all right, within the next couple of months, all right, to test NATO's response, you know, and Poland is a part of NATO, all right. So if Russia attacks Poland, guess what's getting ready to pop off? This Third World War, all right. Russia's at war with NATO. All right. So let's get into this, man. All right. This is breaking news. All right. It's breaking news to me. Right. So let's get it. It says the United States has systematically warned Poland that Russia is planning an armed provocation on Polish soil within the coming months. Woo. All right. You see how the Lord is making things move? All right. Call Halayim, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. All right, and Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Ratazah, I am of the elect. You know, you got to be bugged out to not want to see the kingdom of heaven, right? You got to be bugged out to not want to see these prophecies move, right? Whether you might be part of the elect or not, right? That's why we're known as the hopeful elect, right? So, Lord willing, whether we are of the elect or not, we want to see these prophecies move. You know, I prayed to the Lord. You know, I asked the Lord the other day, listen, if I'm of the elect or not, I still want to see the downfall of my enemy. I still want to see this man go down. You know? Because the scriptures say that, that there's, I forget how it goes, that there's 7 things that the Lord loves, right? And one of them is when a man sees the downfall of his enemy. You know? The Lord loves it when an Israelite man sees the downfall of his enemy, man. And we're seeing it in real time. We're seeing America fall slowly. You know? So it's a good thing to see these prophecies move, man. You know? The kingdom of heaven is almost here. You know, imagine not wanting the kingdom of heaven. Imagine wanting to stay in this place you call America and not wanting the kingdom of heaven. You got to be bugged out your mind. Right? But anyway, let's keep it going, right? It says the United States has systematically warned Poland, all right, that Russia is planning an armed provocation on Polish soil, all right, within the coming months to test NATO's resolve, right? So it says reported scenarios include drone or missile strikes on critical infrastructure, all right, simulated air attacks, or a limited ground incursion by Russian or Belarusian, all right, troops from Kaliningrad, all right, or Belarus, right? It says strategic objectives and scenarios, all right. The alleged plot aims to escalate tensions within the alliance and pressure Western nations to suspend military aid to Ukraine. Woo! All right, let's keep reading. It says Moscow may attempt to mask an incursion as an accidental border crossing due to GPS failure or a rescue mission, right? Hoping to force negotiations rather than a military response, all right? Polish and allied response, all right? Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk stated the country is preparing very intensively, all right, for various security scenarios following the intelligence sharing. All right, sources indicate the U.S. regularly updates Warsaw on these plans, while NATO allies have confirmed the risk of such provocations on the eastern flank. All right. So, I'm letting you know what's popping off and what's going on. This is what's popping off in the world right now, man. We're watching. All right. So things are moving. Things are happening. The Lord is escalating tensions between nations. All right. Because what do the scriptures say? The second woe was past. And behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Woo, we ready right here. That third woe came quick. All right. We here. Right. So let's get it, all right? I got 3 articles, right? I got one from the Daily Mail, right? I got one from the New Voice of Ukraine, all right? And from the Independent. 3 news outlets reporting on this, man. All right? So let's start off with the Daily Mail, all right? So it says Putin is planning Polish incursion to test NATO's response, right? It says the Kremlin is planning an armed incursion on Polish land to test NATO's response, according to Washington, right? The provocation could see Putin's troops across over into Poland, all right? And vital infrastructure could be targeted by missiles and drones. Sources close to Polish President Karol Nawrocki, all right, told news outlet Onet that the U.S. had been warning Warsaw about the plan for a while, right? It says Polish security experts also warned that Russia and Belarus might send a small number of troops across NATO border. Power stations could also be targeted in the incursion through airstrikes that would force Poland to activate its air defense systems. According to Polish sources cited by Onet, Russia could frame a territorial incursion, all right, as either a GPS navigation error or an emergency helicopter recovery. All right, just like we read in that the AI, right? It says Moscow's strategy relies on the assumption, all right, that the U.S. would compel Poland to negotiate rather than engage militarily. All right. Oh, that was the end of the article. Oh, that's it. It keeps going. It says a peaceful, negotiated retreat would be treated as a strategic win for the Kremlin. All right, which could leverage the talks to demand a halt to Western military assistance for Ukraine. Right, and in a worst case scenario for NATO, Russia would aim to undermine Polish sovereignty, all right, force the withdrawal of Western support for Ukraine, and expose NATO as a paper tiger. Right, according to sources, a ground-based attack could come from Kaliningrad, all right, which borders northern Poland, or from Belarus to the east. All right, Russia depends on targeted, all right, limited provocations, all right, to probe NATO's defenses, as its military is too heavy committed to Ukraine to launch a major war. Right? It says, although Poland is a vital security partner for Ukraine, their alliance has recently fractured over agricultural trade and past historical grievances. All right, Moscow is expected to try to worsen this divide. Woo. All right, it says a source close to the Polish president said that the U.S. systematically informs Poland about ever new Russian plans for a conventional attack on NATO's eastern flank, from which Poland is by no means excluded. All right, two separate sources, all right, an ambassador to one of Poland's allies in the NATO alliance and a source in the Polish Defense Ministry also confirmed that there is a serious risk of an incursion in Poland and the Baltic states. All right. And what does Ezekiel 38 say? All right. Even though that chapter is about Russia invading, all right, the land of Israel. All right, but at the beginning of the chapter, the Lord said, "I will raise thee up." Matter of fact, let me grab that real quick. All right, let's get Ezekiel. All right, talking about Gog, which is Russia, right? So let's get Ezekiel 38. I just want to read the beginning of it, right? Let's get it. It says all right, it says Ezekiel 38, all right, in verse 4, it says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth. Talking about God, which is Russia. So the scriptures say the Lord is going to bring Russia forth, all right? And the Lord has brought Russia forth, with this Russian and Ukraine war, all right? And then when you read further the chapter, it's about Gog invading, all right, the land of Israel, all right, destroying the land of Israel, all right, and it's also twofold talking about the land of America as well, all right, the land of unwalled villages, right? But anyway, the point I wanted to get was that the Lord was going to bring God forth, all right? It says, verse 4, and I will bring thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy armies and horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with buckler and shields, all of them handling swords. So the Lord is saying that he's going to bring God's armies forth, right? He said, all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, and even a great company with buckler and shield, all of them handling swords, right? Men that are ready for war, all right? A nation that is ready for war, But let's go back into this article, right? Where was I at? It says, speaking to the Telegraph, a Baltic security source said Moscow was currently discussing these plans. All right. Russia reportedly may attempt to pin the provocation on Ukraine after it is carried out. All right. A recent naval exercise in Latvia, in which the U.S. Navy and Marines participated, is understood to have been designed to remind Putin that an attack on the eastern flank would be seen as an attack on U.S. troops. Woo. Right? It says Poland has conducted similar exercises. According to a member, all right, of the Polish ministries, all right, defense leadership, NATO could respond to the attacks with attacks on Kaliningrad. All right, it is understood, which German Air Force Chief Holger Neumann has cited as a potential target. He also singled out the Kola Peninsula, all right, where Moscow holds nuclear weapons, woo, and the Black Sea as potential targets. All right, so you see what's popping off and what's going on, man. All right, so things are happening. Prophecy is moving, man. All right, prophecy is moving. All right, wars and rumors of wars. All right, the Lord is gathering all these nations and causing tensions to rise and increase between nations, man. All these nations are prepping for war. The Lord said, I will gather the nations and assemble the kingdoms. All right, Zephaniah, the 3rd chapter, the 8th verse. All right, so this is coming from the New Voice of Ukraine. All right, and they're reporting on the same thing. So I'm not really going to read the whole, this whole article, you know, all 3 of them, you know. But I'm showing you, you know, you got many news outlets reporting on it, man, showing you that it's news, man. It's important. This is breaking news, bro. You know? All right, so it says U.S. warns of planned Russian provocation or possible ground incursion in Poland. Right, the U.S. has warned that Russia is planning an armed provocation in Poland, including missile and drone strikes or a potential Russian ground invasion. The Telegraph citing sources close to Polish President Karol Nawrocki reported on July 3rd, and that's today. All right. Washington has issued several warnings to Warsaw about Russia's intentions. The provocations could be launched as early as the next few months. Woo! Right? Polish security sources suggested that Moscow's goal would be to escalate tensions, right, and force Western allies to suspend aid to Ukraine. Woo! So you see what's going on, man. Right? So you see what's popping off, all right? And as well as the Independent, all right? Russia plotting attack on Poland to test NATO's resolve, U.S. claims, right? So you see what's popping off, what's going on. So you could take any one of these articles if any of you brothers happen to be watching, you know? All right? And this is July 3rd, all right? July 3rd, man, all right? You know, this is just in, all right? Breaking news, if you ask me, right? So, you know, just to keep you informed, to let you know what's going on, what's popping off, all right, to bring you, you know, this current news, man. We're watching, sitting upon our tower, letting you know what's going on, blowing that horn, that trumpet, right, which is these scriptures, you know, letting you know what's popping off, bringing to you current news, man, right? What did the Most High Yahweh tell the prophet Ezra? All right, measure the time diligently in itself, right? You have to know what's going on. And Yahweh Shai said to watch and pray. Right? So with that being said, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. All right, this is or was edifying. All right, call her law yum. Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakal Quitash. All right, on to the next one. Shalom, shalom.